There are more than 10 new features coming to Illuvium over the next 3 months, and Aaron broke down in-depth details in the recent town hall. Now, if your life is anything like mine, finding 2 hours out of your day to watch a town hall can be pretty tough sometimes, but thankfully, I have watched the entire thing on your behalf, and I will distill only the most interesting or important information for you in this video. He discusses all the features in greater detail, but also describes some timelines for when these features might be implemented, what he expects for the future of Illuvium, and when we might be getting the next major update to the game. And honestly, it's a lot closer than you might think. So the current state of the game is about understanding strong compositions. It's about going, okay, magma's really good, I'm going to go for magma. And Aaron is trying to go way away from that because that's very much how TFT runs. And he wants to push it more in the realm of strategy that you have during the game itself will reward you and cause you to perform well in that overall battle. And so let's jump into the first snippet here.
And how does that affect the way that I'm supposed to play? What are the cards that have been dealt to me? So at the moment, if you want a whole bunch of matches in a row, it might start to feel a little bit boring. Maybe it doesn't to some people, but I think that pros would start to feel like it's been solved. And it would only stop being solved when we, release a new patch. But with the new version of the game, it's not the sort of thing that is like technically solvable. Each individual match is something that you've got to solve while you're playing it.
And by what he means there is they're adding large amounts of input randomness. Region selection will impact the entire way the game is played. Augments themselves are changing a lot to really change and make it more dynamic on how you progress over time. And drone augments are adding even more nuance to the gameplay where you really need to adapt the game as it's presented to you, which is really exciting. He also says that soon after these features are done, they will progress with working on the mobile launch. I'm hoping for that at the end of the year, but it sounds here like it could come even sooner than that. It's hard to say. So here's the next one.
But we made the choice at the end of last year that we would start working on the new architecture. We're nearly complete with that. Obviously, it's got to go through some testing internally. But once we get that done, a lot of the other features will be a lot easier for us to implement. And more importantly, a lot of things like the crashes that people are experiencing, some of the desyncs and stuff like that, all of that will go away. It will become a lot easier for us to build
as long as it's faster for them to build and all the crashes and desyncs are resolved, it should make the game a much better experience, and we should get updates and new features a lot more frequently, which will keep the game fresh and exciting for the long term. This is all highly necessary before marketing the game, getting more players into the ecosystem, and really getting this thing turning, including rewards, which I know you want to hear. But Illuvium is not the only game with huge updates coming. You also need to check out this upcoming Battle Royale that is progressing quickly. Open is a multi-mode Battle Royale game coming to PC and current generation consoles in partnership with the author of Ready Player One. It will feature IPs like the DeLorean and Reebok, with many more to come and heaps of awesome items to collect. What excites me the most is they seem to be shaking up the entire genre. You may need to complete unique objectives or even drive and beat others on a racetrack to win this unique battle royale. Follow their X profile and watch them like a hawk. I assure you, you won't regret it. So the other thing they're looking at is they have current plans to add these 3 options here, Aaron says, to the game. Now, it might need some tweaking. They haven't done testing on it yet, but this example would be +5 drone HP every 7 rounds as one of the options. Composite synergy augments are given to every player, and drone damage on win is increased, so the first one makes the game last a lot longer, the middle one makes it a whole lot more interesting, and the third one makes the game last a lot shorter, which would really change the way you play, because if the game's going to be shorter, you're definitely going to want to play a lot more aggressive than you would otherwise, and it's going to really, if you're really used to building up a strong economy, you cannot do that anymore, and you have to play the game completely differently. The other thing is the regions will all have their own battle board, and they're floating the idea of region cosmetics being there for players that don't actually already have a battle board cosmetic themselves. Here's the next one.
And then for probably a couple of patches, we'll get some data on, what are people enjoying, what are the things that people really like, what do they don't like, and we'll adjust the effects based on that. But the long-term goal is to have a way for you to go into the match picking what you think is the most fun region to go to, and then some combination of randomness and what you've picked with what all of the other people in the match have picked will determine what region you play. If everybody decides...
So really what he's saying here is this is one of the next features to get implemented, and how they're going to do that is they're going to have it just be completely random to begin with. You're not actually going to choose which region you're going into. I'm excited for choosing, but to get it into the game faster, they're not necessarily going to have that, and it's just going to be a random region selected, and hopefully that's going to come to the game soon, and I think it's going to make a really big difference. Here's the next thing where he talks about rangers and a ranger just becoming an Illuvium.
Into the game, such as your own avatar, there's got to be something that makes it stand out, that makes it have some good elements to it, and some trade-offs. Illuvials, you can always get the ones you want. Maybe you low roll and you can't get ram fire, but you probably, if you really want to, you're probably going to be able to get ram for every match, right? With the ranger, we want that to be the trade-off. You just can't get the same ranger configuration every game. It's going to be random, and there's a lot of randomness there, and you've got to find your way to the really cool strategies inside of there. But more importantly, we wanted it to be much more configurable. So
the ranger at this current time is basically the same thing as an alluvial, and Aaron is describing there how he doesn't want it to just be like TFT. TFT doesn't have a ranger, sure, but really the ranger isn't actually doing anything different to other parts and other mechanics in the game, and Aaron suggests that he really wants to make sure it stands out and it's configurable not only over time, but it has some randomness to it as well. You can't always get exactly what you want, and so you need to play around it, because anyone who isn't is at a steep disadvantage, and I think that's really exciting for Illuvium. So the next one here is really interesting.
Weapon is still going to give you the Omega, right? But then as you level up, we want that Omega to change depending on what these weapon amplifiers are, right? So no longer will it be just, it's a set, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and it just gets stronger with the levels. Now you get to make it like properly configurable, right? It could be that your weapon is a really, really strong single target damage, and you get a weapon upgrade that turns it into AoE. Like, that could be really cool, especially if...
Like, really think about that for a second. I really like that idea. So your weapon is a single target damage, say kind of like the boomerang, where maybe it hits the furthest target and then bounces back and comes back to you. But you figured that the rest of your team has really weak AoE damage. They're all hitting single targets. They're taking out one target at a time, but you need something that can kind of like demolish that backline because you're having trouble taking out the backline scions. Now you can upgrade your ranger to fulfill that role for you and have it do all that backline AoE damage because that weapon amplifier came up. And I'm hoping it's like set skill trees, and so you can kind of get used to them a bit, but at the same time, some randomness could be cool as well. I think this is going to make the game really, really interesting.
My plan is for it to be based on getting to those levels, which means you have to like strategically choose, do you want to spend those credits to level up and make the ranger more powerful straight away? Or do you want to save those credits to make the, your team comp of alluvials around you a lot stronger by trying to find, those stage 3s? A lot of the other people on the design team would prefer it to be round based so that everybody gets it at the same time. There's a little bit of a conflict internally on that. I'm not super strong on it, but just letting everybody know that it could end up being released as a round-based system rather than it being a level-based system.
Yeah,
Either
I'm
way,
not
I'm
sure
sure
I have a
it'll be
preference.
fun.
I think when we first
So what they're talking about here is when you actually get these weapon amplifiers and upgrade your ranger, they're wondering if it should just happen for everyone on the same round at the same time or happen to an individual player at any given time. Now, Aaron talks about it a little bit, but the biggest issue with having it happen when your ranger, say, levels up to level 7 is the time it takes to actually do this thing needs to be catered for. Now, what I think could be really easy is if you have a little pop-up for your ranger that's kind of like a skill tree, and you can say, like, this is the one I want. When I get to that level, automatically upgrade me there and stuff like that. And so you can do it at any time. More importantly, you can do it when you're not actually in combat, which is when you have some downtime during a game of Illuvium Gauntlet. I think those sorts of UI treatments are really all that matters here. If you can do that without doing it a single round thing, cutting out an entire round does make the game a lot shorter, because if you keep adding it over and over, and we've got some other things we'll talk about in a second, then it can get a little bit heavy. But let's go to the next one.
One of the big things is we've got to make sure the game feels really fun. And from a quality of life perspective, there's a couple of points in the game which are really slow and unfun and not good. And we're totally changing that so that it'll all happen a lot quicker. And then there's other things that really should have a little bit more time to make the decision. And
yeah, this is one of the bigger problems of the game right now, is the game feels a little bit slow towards the later part, and at the start it just feels way too fast. They'll be fixing the overall pacing of the game, which is really exciting. They also feel the game's overall length is a little bit on the long side, and there's a bunch of dead time that they will definitely be removing in between all these other sections. The other thing is they'll be returning bonding back to the game, and Aaron assures everyone that it will be much easier to bond and unbond your ranger to different alluvials, as well as it's easier to see who is currently bonding, tooltips for what affinity and class and stuff you're going to get after bonding and all that sort of stuff. So he's going to make it way better for people who are especially new to the game, because bonding has been a little bit tough in the past. Let's just put it that way.
The general idea is that we want you to be able to upgrade your drone during the match. For anyone who doesn't know, the drone is literally the player in Arena. Yeah, the ranger is a character on the board, and yes, we're trying to make it configurable or whatever, but the ranger is not the one controlling everything. The drone is literally the one that's moving the pieces around the board. So I guess one of the differences between Overworld, the new MMO, and things like that compared to Arena is that in Arena, the player character is the drone, right? It doesn't feel like that at the moment because we disabled the movement system and stuff like that. That's all coming back. That'll be...
Yes, I just wanted the movement system to come back. It's always fun in TFT. I'm looking forward to it coming back in Illuvium. Not only that, but he also mentions that it will actually have similar timing to legendary augments. I don't know exactly how often legendary augments are right now. It might be like every 6 rounds or 7 rounds is a legendary augment. It'll be similar thing for drone augments. Usually in TFT, you get your third and your final drone augment when around the time when maybe one player is about to get knocked out and stuff like that. So let's say around 15, 16 is when you're really getting that last drone augment, and they're going to make the game so much more dynamic. I'm really excited for them.
You'll get more credits each turn. You have a higher interest cap. You'll get higher chance of getting higher tier units appearing in the shop earlier. All these sort of things. There's a bunch of them in there that are even related to synergizing with a particular unit. Right? They're basically a different dimension of gameplay that we think people will really, really enjoy. And the replacement of legendaries, all that means is that legendaries are these very powerful augments for the alluvials. So now it could be that you get a drone augment that says, open up a legendary crate. And
I really love that idea. We've got similar things kind of happening in TFT. I'm really looking forward to this coming in Illuvium, but imagine, you get the legendary crate, it opens up and you've got an option of 3 or 4 legendary augments. Like, the only other ways to get legendary augments, well, he says there's going to be several ways to do it, but really these are powerful, powerful additions to your team. I don't think you're going to be disadvantaged by saying like, extra 10% damage to fire alluvials over a legendary augment, but at the same time, it's just going to allow you to specialize one unit on your board quite a bit, or add so much tankiness to something or something like that. I think it's a much better way to implement legendary augments, where they're a lot more special, harder to come by, but at the same time, they're a lot more, they're a little bit less random. You have a lot more choice. It's a lot more like, do I really need this legendary augment or not? I think that's going to be good stuff.
Together, so that there is a sense of community, a sense of the match being with other people. One of the things that is not good about the game at the moment is that it's very isolated. We are adding in some features before these new features go in that'll make it feel a little bit less isolated, in terms of giving you a lot of notifications about what your opponents are doing, when they level up, when they get a stage 2 unit, a stage 3 unit, hovering over them will tell you a bit about their composition and all sorts of stuff. These things we want to stay in the game even once all of this stuff is live, because they are quality of life improvements that.
For anyone who doesn't know what he's talking about, firstly, he's going to bring in the carousel system that TFT has. Now, we'll get into a second, but their system works a little bit differently. But more importantly, there's going to be little updates that give notifications about other players all throughout the match. So maybe I'm playing against Rich and he's at the top of the board or whatever, but I can see a little pop-up that says Rich just hit level 5, or a little pop-up that says he got a stage 2 gorilla, or he got a stage 3 exalted gorilla, and things like that. That's all going to pop up down the side. So even like before scouting and stuff comes out, you're going to be able to see how everyone else is playing their game and be able to adapt your own strategy accordingly, which is a really major component that's been missing from the Illuvium Gauntlet for the longest time now. And so it's good to see that it's going to be coming in. It's going to be coming into the game hopefully very, very soon, but we'll see how we go.
That will determine the time at which you get released. If two people have
released for the draft setup, kind of like the carousel,
have the same health, it doesn't matter how many of them have the same drone health, you'll all be released simultaneously. If you've got slightly more health than someone else, you'll be released slightly after them. If you've got a heap more health than someone, you'll be released a long time after them. So you get...
I really like this concept. I don't know how it's going to work in practice, but I really like it. He also describes kind of how the draft system's a little bit different to TFT, whereas TFT is a carousel and all the little units and their components walk around in a circle. It's actually going to look quite different for Illuvium. So basically, the Illuviums will all start, I'm assuming, at the top or close to the top, and they'll start moving south. He describes it as south, but they'll start moving downwards towards the bottom of the row. And then everyone who's in last position will start off at the bottom. And so it'll be really easy for them to actually go and grab those alluvials that they might need, whereas in TFT there's a lot more RNG and it doesn't necessarily work that way. But basically they're going to go down the bottom, and if you miss them or you ignore them, they're going to go through a little portal, and then they're going to reappear back at the top of the board and start walking downwards as well. But it should give the players who are running behind, who are not doing so great, or low in health, perfect opportunity to get exactly what they need. Not really much RNG involved, like a little bit, but also being released based on your HP is really cool. So maybe everyone's like basically on the same HP. You're going to get released at the same time. Not just like, if I'm 1 health behind you, I'm not going to get a huge advantage over you because I'm only 1 health behind you. I think that's going to make a big improvement to this overall system, since catching up is a really big part of this mechanic. The other thing is they talked about suit augments a bit, and they plan on adding heaps of them to the game, to the extent where re-rolling them, even though it might cost 1 credit to re-roll, you will get something specific, but it will be very, to re-roll for something specific, it will actually be very, very costly, because you'll have to re-roll through tons of variations to be able to find exactly what you're looking for, despite that being quite good to actually power up your ranger in the later stages of the game. Okay. Let's get into Leviathans. I'm looking forward to this.
Like the time frame for these, probably these ones are going to be a bit further down the line for a couple of reasons. Number one, the art team at the moment is largely focused on getting the mobile assets optimized so that we can get mobile out sooner. from that perspective, it's better for them to be working on that, because mobile is going to be a bigger impact than changing the PvE rounds that we have, and secondly, the PvE rounds are something that we can put in placeholders, and they're not going to do too much to the game. So these will be a little bit later, but they're going to be super fun. I know that I put in there Leviathan combat, but there's other things that we're putting in there as well, right? There are going to be a large number of PvE encounters that people play with a large amount of variety.
See, that really excites me. I feel like the variety is lost in other auto battlers, but if they can nail that and make it really interesting and exciting in different ways, especially with the new item system, I think it's going to be really cool. I'm a little bit bummed out to hear Leviathans are kind of last thing to be added and implemented, but at the same time, it is true they can just add placeholders, and the other features are more important for now as they work on mobile optimization.
Which I think we can go into.
Let's go into the item system.
In a sec, all the way through to unit crates. So, I mean, we haven't actually named them yet. They might be unit orbs or something like that, but it could be that one of these drops, say, a random, tier 2, stage 2 character, and it'll just sit on your bench until you sell it. And when you sell it, something random will pop up. It could even be, if we want to give a little bit more, agency to the player, it might be a choice that pops up, very similar to the way that legendary augments will work. But we think that this will be a cool way for the player to build strong teams, because they'll merge together. If you get, 3 stage 1 tier 5 orbs, then they'll merge together into a stage 2 version of it, so that then when you open it, instead of it just being you get 3 random units, you'll be guaranteed to get a stage 2 unit then, and that can be really, really powerful.
Powerful does not even begin to describe it. Anyways, that sounds really exciting. So in the PvE rounds, you'll be able to get the item components, which we'll talk about in just a minute, but you'll also probably be able to get these alluvial crates, and then you'll be able to merge the alluvial crates together to guarantee stage 2, and I mean, it would be absurd, but guarantee a stage 3 even. I'm sure that's possible, although crazy as it would be, and get some really insane stuff. I think the strategy surrounding all of that will be really, really fun, and will improve the pacing of the game a lot as well, because you'll be thinking about so many more things, even though they won't be quite overwhelming. You'll be like, okay, when do I sell this? When do I open this crate? I really need something right now. I don't need it yet. I could save it for later and maybe it'll be a tier 5 and stuff like that. It's going to make some really interesting gameplay in the game. Some other things I need to talk about is they say the late game PvE battles will be more about surviving to maximize potential rewards. So say you survive for 10 seconds and then it's Leviathan, you might get 1 item, but if you survive 30 seconds, you might get 5 or 6 items, and be progressively different. And then if they have ranging affinities and strengths against different team compositions and stuff like that, setting up your team to defeat the Leviathan or play really well against it to get really good rewards, it's going to be a really interesting element of dynamic gameplay as well. So the other thing is they don't want it to be too easy to get the exact augment you need. So the item system will be combining components together to receive a choice of potentially 4 potential augments. Now, roughly the same amount of augments will exist in the game, about 10 per category. And the 4 categories that Aaron is suggesting is attack, omega, defense, and utility. He's not sure if utility will stay, but I definitely think it should. But basically you get these 2 attack components, merge them together, and you'll get a choice of 4 attack augments. How I imagine it is if you put an omega component together, maybe you'll get 2 omega augments and 2 attack augments pop up for you to choose between, but I think that'd be a little bit too OP. You wouldn't really want to merge 2 attacks together. But what if merging attack and omega together gave you 4 augments that you could really kind of see as either attack or omega, where something's like grant 20 attack and 20 omega to an Illuvial. That would be really interesting nuance to the gameplay, although that's probably a lot harder to create augments that are well balanced within the means of the game. It's probably 2 attack and 2 omega or whatever it might be, but I still think it's a neat idea. Let me know what you think down below. All right.
Why it exists in TFT is because you can't just pop things off by default. So like there's no way for them to have put that into a user interface where it would be a lot more intuitive and simple. Instead, it has to be an item because it's not the normal thing, right? And so even in modes where it is the normal thing, you know, they can't just go and change the whole user interface.
So for I don't even know, you guys probably heard all that, but what all Aaron said there was it will be easy, still easy to remove augments. If community feedback comes in and that doesn't become a thing anymore, then they might remove it. But at the moment, they have no plans of getting rid of the option to remove augments from your Illuvials. They actually plan on making it easier where you can actually just drag an augment from one Illuvial onto another one, which would be really sweet. The other thing is the team planner in the game will add UI treatment inside the game. So if you put a fiery and a rampy in your team planner and then it pops up in the shop, it'll show you that you have that on your current team planner. It will also be highly customizable. So you'll be able to customize your Leviathan team and say, pick your specific atlas that you might want to use in that team. And it will also be available inside the client, which is really, really cool. Not only that, but it will have composition names, toggles, and other things like that. Okay. So let's get on to the next feature.
That are coming out before the upgrade to multiplayer, because like I said, there's other people working on those features. But there will be a decent amount of features that come out with that. I mean, the game is already multiplayer now. So when we say multiplayer, we're not saying like it's a single player game and this will be multiplayer. We're talking about the engine overhaul to make a lot of those things work a lot better. So the first big update will be in March, and it will have you know, the ability to move around, watch other matches and stuff like that, plus a couple of the features. Probably the main one will be regions, which we think is the sort of update that is not going to impact so much the other ones. It doesn't require them, so it should just be a fun, you know, valid and really cool update to the game. And then the month after, there'll be probably the bulk of the changes done.
So from this, it sounds like things like scouting, maybe the drafting system, and then regions possibly a little bit before this is all going to come out in March. I'm hoping early March, but we'll see. After that, it sounds like there's a whole slew of new features that will be coming out after this engine overhaul, which is probably things like the item system, weapons, suits, and all the rest of it. Let's have a look what he says here.
Features, then most of the other features, and then the final month after that will be mostly polish and possibly one more feature to go in. It could be that we get all of them in one go. If they're ready, then we'll release them. And the only other question is, you know, will we put them on to test servers first? I'd really like to bypass it because at the moment I'd like to think that the whole community is just testing these things, and we don't want to gate it to be people that have to like open up a different version of the game. And probably testnet will be something that we start to use a lot more once all the features are in and we've got the player base up to a healthy level. At that point, we'll probably then give the diehards access to testnet and they can see the features before everyone else does. But for now, we don't see a lot of reason to do that.
You heard it here first. Very, very easy. He's hoping everything will basically be in like a polishing state by the time May rolls around. So not long to wait now, guys. May is when my birthday is, so that'll be a nice birthday present for me if they manage to keep everything on track. But I actually think they're being conservative. I actually think we're gonna have things like really going well by the end of April. We're gonna have a lot of new features to play with, and polish is actually gonna be looking pretty solid. Polish has been better than ever so far. So I actually think I'm actually pretty optimistic here, which is rare sometimes because they haven't been the best with timelines. All right, the next one
that we do proves to be super popular and it's like a choice in the game or a randomness that comes up, it could be that later on that becomes part of the staple of the game. So the best example would be, let's say we give you a legendary augment crate at the start of the game as part of one of the regions, and then everyone starts voting on that and says, we just love that. Everybody needs to start with a legendary. It might be that we end up just incorporating that. That just becomes the default nature of the game. That will obviously change and it'll evolve over time. There's going to be season passes.
That was my next one, but here we go.
Battle passes, that sort of thing that entice people to get particular, unique cosmetics and stuff like that. There's a lot of those things that we're planning that we couldn't before because we had a smaller team working on Arena. Now we've got a lot of people working on it, so we can get a lot of stuff done.
It's really good to hear they can actually work on that, what I would refer to as end game content, like season and battle passes and things like that, because that keeps players coming back for more. You need to keep refreshing the game in as many ways as you can, and hearing that putting the entire team or most of the team on the arena is helping them get that sort of stuff done is actually really bullish news for the Illuvium ecosystem.
We do work fast. It's just that, we have made some mistakes in terms of the way we tooled the engine from the beginning, and once we get out of that sort of rut, things will move a lot faster, even if we have a smaller team. That I can assure you.
And no question.
So they're going to be moving faster than ever, getting the game ready and out to players as soon as it's ready. Best news I've heard all day. I hope you learned something today, and if you want to get started playing Illuvium today, I recommend checking out my beginner's guide on the Illuvium Gauntlet so you are well prepared for these updates.